So I'm going to try and lead it. And as I've said to Jess, you know, I'm good at participating in music, but not so good at leading it because I often change key. So if I do, forgive me. And I hope that you'll all join in. So we are going to try and sing Yedid Nefesh together. It's on page 126. Yedid Nefesh Ha'Rachaman, Yedid Nefesh Ha'Rachaman, Meshochav Decha El Retzonecha Meshochav Decha La 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 El Retzonecha Yedid Nefesh is a beautiful text. We address God as Yedid Nefesh, the friend of my soul. We address God in a very direct and very personal way. And this particular text really envisages a very close and intimate relationship between each one of us and God. So we are going to light the candles. I'm going to ask Margaret Auerbach to come to the front. And to light the candles, the bracha is on page 118. Thank you, Margaret.
Source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu v'tzivanu lehatlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehalit ner shel Shabbat.
Please be seated. On page 125, where has this week vanished? Is it lost forever? Will I recover anything from it? The joy of life, the unexpected victory, the realized hope, the task accomplished. Will I ever be able to banish the memory of pain, the sting of defeat, the heaviness of boredom? On this day, let me keep for a while what must drift away. On this day, let me be free of the burdens that must return. On this day, Shabbat abide. Help me to withdraw for a while from the flight of time. Contain the retreat of the hours and days from the grasp of life. Let me learn to pause, if only for this day. Let me find peace on this day. Let me enter into a quiet world on this day. On this day, Shabbat abide. The Chuna Ranana is on page 130. We're about to sing Or Zarua, which is from Psalm 97. Let's just pause for a moment to think about what this little passage means. So from 97, we're really talking about the greatness of God and God's power. And then it says this really interesting and unexpected thing, I think. Or Zarua lat tzadik, uli yisraelev simcha, simchu tzadikim badonai. V'hodu lezecher kodsho. Or Zarua lat tzadik means that light is sown for the righteous, and those who are pure of heart are given happiness, or happiness is set aside for those who are pure of heart. And I love that idea of light being sown for the righteous. And it doesn't come really, I don't think, in this psalm as a reward. It's not that we get reward of light or happiness for being righteous or for being good, but rather that if we can attain a state of righteousness, if we can attain a state of integrity in ourselves, if we can look within and find that purity and righteousness within ourselves, then we access a particular kind of sacred light. And that's why I think it says that light is sown for the righteous, that righteousness gives us a way of accessing a divine light. And so on page 132, Or Zarua.
ישרף שמחה ולישרף שמחה
The Eternal is sovereign. Let the earth exult, the many islands rejoice. Dense clouds are around God. Righteousness and justice are the base of God's throne. O you who love God, hate evil. God, guard the lives of your loyal ones. Save us from the hands of the wicked. For light is sown for the righteous, radiance for the upright. O you righteous, rejoice in God and acclaim God's holy name. Shir Ladonai, page 133.
Sorry, I got them the wrong one.
So we're doing something a bit unusual here in the service. We're going directly from Psalm 97 to Psalm 98. You know that there are 150 psalms, and quite often the psalms that are adjacent to each other gather around a certain theme. And so here we are going from Psalm 97 to Psalm 98. Shir Ladonai, Shir Chadash.
Shiru Ladonai, Shiru Shipadash, Shiru Ladonai, Kol Haaretz, Shiru Ladonai, Baruch Shemo, Masru miyom leyom, Yeshuato, Sabru, Baroyim, Shemodo, Sabru, Baroyim, Emodo, Hotehada, Lefana, Hotehada, Lefana, Osvetiferet, Mikdasho, Osvetiferet, Mikdasho, Adonai, Adonai, Shamayim Asa, Adonai, Adonai, Shamayim Asa, B'chol ha'amim nifleota, Ki gadol Adonai u'me'onot, Norahu al kol Elohim, Ki kol Elohim anim, Adonai, Adonai, Shamayim Asa, Adonai, Adonai, Shamayim Asa.
We are about to welcome the Shabbat. Before we do so, let's read Psalm 29 on page 136. Mizmor LeDavid. Havu Ladonai b'nei Elim, Havu Ladonai kavod ba'od, Havu Ladonai kavod shemo, Hishtachavu Ladonai b'hadrat kodesh, Kol Adonai al hamayim, El hakavod hirim, Adonai al mayim rabim, Kol Adonai b'koach, Kol Adonai b'hadar, Kol Adonai shover arazim, Vayishaver Adonai et arzeh halevanon, Vayakidem kamo egel, Levanon, Basirion, Kamoven, Re'emin. On page 137 in English, the voice of the Eternal One kindles flames of fire. The voice of God convulses the wilderness. The Eternal One convulses the wilderness of Kadesh. The voice of God caused hinds to calm and strips forests bare, while in God's temple all say glory. The Eternal One sat enthroned at the flood. The Eternal One sits enthroned. May God grant strength to our people. May God grant our people peace. Adonai Oz le'amo yitin. Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom. Lecha Dodi is on page 138. Welcomed the Shabbat into our midst. You may be seated. Until now, we've been preparing to welcome Shabbat. We've now welcomed Shabbat into our midst, and because of that, we can now sing the psalm for the Shabbat, and that is Psalm 92 on page 140, Mizmor Shir Leyom HaShabbat, a special psalm for the day of Shabbat.
מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. להגיד כבוד לחסדך, ואמונתך העליון.
Adonai me'od amku machshavotecha. How great are your works, O God. How very profound are your thoughts. And so we have welcomed the Shabbat, and what we do now is we shift gear a little bit, and we start the next section of our service, which is the Shema and its blessings. And the Shema really starts with the Baruch Hu. The Baruch Hu is the call to prayer, and we are now going to call each other to prayer on page 146. You may rise. Page 148. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidbaro ma'ariv arabim, bechokma poteach she'arim, ובתבונה משנה עתים, ומחליף את הזמנים, ומסדר את הכוכבים במשמורותיהם ברקיע, כרצונו בורא יום ולילה, כולל אור מפני חושך, וחושך מפני אור, ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו, אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו, לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, המעריב ערבים. We bless you, O God, whose word causes evening to fall. We bless you, O God, who rolls the day away and who rolls the night in. We bless you, O God, for the stars that you arrange in the heavens according to your will, that are shining even when we don't see them. Even during the day, those stars are there, unseen but shining, just in the manner that you have created them. And we thank you, God, for the distinction between day and night. We thank you for the transition from the day into the night. And we thank you for the quiet and stillness of the night and for the opportunity to rest. On page 150, Ahavat Olam. everlasting love. And because of that love, you have given us the Torah and the mitzvot, the laws and the precepts. You have taught them all to us. Because of that, O Lord our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments, and we will rejoice in your Torah. For they are our life and the length of our days. We ask, O God, that you never remove your love from us. Blessed, O God, who loves his people Israel and all the world. And we take the energy of the Ahavat Olam, which is about the covenant between God and the people of Israel, and we draw that energy into ourselves as we recite the Shema on page 152. We usually cover our eyes with our right hands as we recite together. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. On page 154, let's recite together in Hebrew. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך. ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם. בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך. וקשרתם לאות על ידיך. והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך. וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. You shall love your eternal God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. Take to heart these instructions with which I charge you this day. Impress them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up. Bind them as a sign upon your hand. Let them be a symbol before your eyes. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. On page 158, מי כמוך.
מי כמוך פועל אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש. נורא תהילות אוסף עליה, נורא תהילות אוסף
The word fele in Hebrew, if you take it particularly from this verse, we hear norati lot or se fele. The word fele means wonders or miracles. I learned recently that the soccer player Pele was in fact named from this word, fele, wonders. A very beautiful name. And this is an extraordinary verse, I think, particularly coming as it does as the Jews cross the Red Sea. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל Israel. Thus it is said, and God redeemed Jacob from a hand that was stronger than his own. Blessed are you, Eternal One, the Redeemer of Israel. So this part of the service is one where we grapple with our vulnerability. The very fact that we remember the crossing over of the Red Sea. The very fact that we say, that we remind ourselves that God redeemed Jacob from a hand that was stronger than his own. We feel some vulnerability in the world, and we feel that we have God's protection. We can rely on God. We can turn to God and ask for God's protection. And that's exactly what we do on page 160 when we recite the Hashkivenu prayer. The Hashkivenu is a particularly beautiful prayer, and one that I think each of us can learn and recite daily if we wish, or whenever we feel that vulnerability. The Hashkivenu asks that we ask God, we say, God, please tonight may I lie down in peace, and may I rise up tomorrow to life renewed. And we say to God, we ask that he keeps far from us all dangers. We ask that God keeps far from us enemies, illness, war, famine, and anguish. We ask also that God keeps us far from wrongdoing, that we should not contribute any negativity to the world, that we should not bring any destruction into the world. And perhaps most importantly, we ask God, we say, spread over us the shelter of your peace. Ufros alenu sukat shlomecha. We ask God, could you spread over us a shelter of peace? We know the word sukkah, a shelter from Sukkot, and we ask that God spreads over us a sukkah, a shelter of peace. That's what the Hashkivenu prayer is all about. Page 160. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leShalom Vehamidenu Malkeinu leChaim Tovim uleShalom Uferos Aleinu Sukat Shalomecha V'takneinu Beitzah Tova milfanecha V'hoshienu Leman Shemecha V'hagen ba'adeinu V'haser me'aleinu Oyev dever V'cherev v'ra'av v'yagon V'haser satan milfanenu me'achoreinu Uve'tzel knafecha tastirenu Ki el shomrenu matzilenu ata Ki el melech hanun Verachum ata Ushemor Seitenu uvoenu Lechaim uleShalom Me'ata ve'ad olam Baruch ata Adonai Hapores Sukat Shalom Aleinu Ve'al kol Amo Yisrael Ve'al kol Bnei Adam. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Eternal One, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up, waiting to do your will. Blessed are you, Eternal One, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people, Israel, over Jerusalem, and over all the world. on page 162, Yismachu b'malchutcha.
Yambali mama, Shabbat, Shabbat. Yambali mama, Shabbat, Shabbat. Yambali mama, Shabbat, Shabbat. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat. Yismachu, Yismachu b'malchutcha. Yismachu, Yismachu b'malchutcha. Shomrei Shabbat, Shomrei Shabbat, V'korei onei Shabbat. Shomrei Shabbat, Shomrei Shabbat, V'korei onei Shabbat. Aham v'kadeshei shivim, kulam yiskou v'yiftamu, mitu v'cha Shabbat, Shabbat. Yismachu, Yismachu b'malchutcha. Yismachu, Yismachu b'malchutcha. Shomrei Shabbat, Shomrei Shabbat, V'korei onei Shabbat. Shomrei Shabbat, Shomrei Shabbat, V'korei onei Shabbat. Oh, Shevi Hatzita bo, Ratzita bo, V'kidashto, Emdat yamim otokarata, Sefer Maaseh Bereshit. Yismachu, Yismachu b'malchutcha. Yismachu, Yismachu b'malchutcha. Shomrei Shabbat, Shomrei Shabbat, V'korei onei Shabbat. Shomrei Shabbat, Shomrei Shabbat, V'korei onei Shabbat.
We rise now for the Amidah on page 164. Adonai sefatai tiftachu fi agitet hilatem. Eternal God, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu ve'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol HaGadol ve'Hanora, El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Ve'koneh Hakol, Ve'zocher Chasei Avot v'Imahot, ומביא גאולה לפני בניהם למען שמו ואהבה מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם ושרה. On page 168. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני בחיי מתים אתה רע להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מזריח השמש ומוריד הטל, מחלל חיים בחסד, בחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו אישי מעפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יחללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש. Page 172. אתה קידשת את יום השביעי לשמך, תכלית מעשה שמיים וארץ, וברכתו מכל הימים, וקידשתו מכל הזמנים, וכן כתוב בתורתך.
ויחולו השמיים והארץ וכל צבאם, ויחל אלוהים ביום השביעי מלאכתו אשר עשה, וישבות ביום השביעי מכל מלאכתו אשר עשה. ויברך אלוהים יום השביעי וימדש אותו, כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות.
אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו רוצה במנוחתנו, קדשנו במצוותיך ותנחתנו בתורתך, שרנו מטובך ושמחנו בישועתך, וטהר ליבנו לעובדך באמת. והנחילנו אדוני אלוהינו באהבה וברצון שבת קודשך, וינוחו בה ישראל מקדשי שמך. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. Our God and God of our ancestors, be pleased with our rest. Sanctify us with your mitzvot and grant us a share in your Torah. Satisfy us with your goodness, gladden us with your salvation. Purify our hearts to serve you in truth. In your gracious love, eternal our God, grant as our heritage your holy Shabbat, that Israel, who sanctifies your name, may rest. Blessed are you, eternal one, who sanctifies the Shabbat. On page 174, it say Adonai Eloheinu b'amcha Yisrael, u'tfilatam be'ahava tekabel, u'tehi leratzon tamid avodat Yisrael amecha. El karov l'chol kora'av, O God, who is close especially to those who seek to be close to him. Pnei el avadecha v'chonenu, turn towards your servant and grant us grace. Shafoch ruchacha aleinu, pour out your spirit among us. V'techazena einenu b'shuvcha l'tzion berachamim, and may we merit to see the return of your holy, sacred, and gentle spirit, the Shekhinah, to Jerusalem. Baruch atah Adonai, hamachazir, shinatu v'tzil.
מודים אנחנו לך שתבוא, אדוני אלוהינו, אלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, לעולם ועד. צוקיינו מגן אישנו, צוקיינו מגן אישנו, אתה הוא לדור ודור, לדור ודור. נודה לך ונספר תהילתך, חיינו המסורים בידיך, והנשמותינו הפקודות לך, והניסיך שבכל יום עמנו. יום נפלאותיך וטובותיך, שבכל ערב בבוקר בצהריים, ערב בבוקר בצהריים, הטוב כי לא חלו רחמים.
יודוך סלע. יהללו את שמך באמת, האלה שועתנו ועזרתנו סלע. ברוך אתה אדוני, הטוב שמך, ולך נעלה להודות. On page 178, Shalom Rav.
Shalom Israel Amcha Kasim Leolam. Shalom Israel Amcha Kasim Leolam. Ki ata melech Adon lechol hashalom. Kasim leolam, shalom Israel Amcha, Kasim leolam, v'tov b'necha l'rareh et Amcha Yisrael, b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Israel Amcha, Kasim leolam. Shalom Israel Amcha, Kasim leolam. Kasim leolam. Kasim leolam.
You may be seated a few moments for silent prayer. Elohai Netzor Lishoni Mera. I'm reading from the text that is given to us as a consideration for a silent prayer on page 180. Elohai Netzor Lishoni Mera Usfatai Midaber Mirma. O God, protect my lips from evil and protect my mouth from speaking deceitfully. V'lim kalalai nafshi tidom v'nafshi ke'afar lakol tihiyeh. May my soul be deaf to negativity, and may my heart be immune from all negative energy. Yihiyu l'ratson imre fi, v'hegyon libi lefanecha Adonai, suri v'go'ali. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, O God, my rock and my redeemer.
Yihiyu l'ratson imre fi, v'hegyon libi lefanecha Adonai suri, Adonai suri, v'go'ali l'ratson imre fi, v'hegyon libi lefanecha Adonai suri, Adonai suri, v'go'ali
is amazing, isn't it, what 20 minutes of sacred space can do. Before we go on to talk about some of the meanings of the Parsha and the Haftarah, let us pause and to bring into our consciousness and into our hearts those of our community who are in need of healing. On page 371 we are going to recite a Mishe Berach. The point of the Mishe Berach is to ask God to bring healing and protection to those who are sick. And the point of it for us is to bring those people into our consciousness and to also lend them our energy and to also lend them whatever positive spirit that we can bring to them that will also aid with their healing. So I'm going to ask you in a moment, starting on my left-hand side, just to call the names of anyone you know who may be in need of this prayer. And if there are others who perhaps are not mentioned out loud, you may also just mention them in your heart. But starting on the left, please just call out any name of a person who is in need of healing.
Sarah Sherman.
Matty, Tracy Whittinson,
Joel,
Tova bat Ella.
On page 371. Mishe Berach Avotenu v'Imotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah Hu Yevarech et HaCholim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yamelech Alehem Lehachalimam u'lerefuatam u'lehachazikam v'yishlach lahem meher refuah shelema min hashamayim refuat hanefesh v'refuat haguf Hashta b'agala u'bizman kariv Benomar. Amen. May the one who blessed our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal those who are ill, and in particular those whose names we have just mentioned. May the blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for their health to be restored and their strength to be revived, and may God swiftly send them a refuah shalema, a complete renewal of body and spirit, as we say together, Amen.
Mishe Berach Lavotenu Kol habracha Leimotenu May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishe Berach Imotenu Kol habracha Lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema. Renewal of body, renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Thank you to our beautiful musicians. Let's speak for a few moments about the Parsha, and let's see where it leads us in this world, this very difficult world that we are living in. This week is the Parsha Bo, Parshat Bo, which is indeed the story of the 10 plagues. It is really the heart of the struggle of the Jewish people in Egypt, the struggle for liberation, from slavery. It is a difficult parsha because it describes the hardening of hearts, the way in which Pharaoh hardened his heart and refused to allow the Jewish people to exit from slavery, to exit from Egypt, and because it describes the 10 plagues which were part of a historic process of liberation, but which nonetheless brought immense suffering to the people of Egypt. It is an important parsha for us to read at this time. The parsha ends indeed with the liberation of the Jews from Egypt, and it tells us some very interesting things. One of the things it tells us, there's an important, I think, phrase which reminds us. It says, V'gam erev rav ala itam, that when it came time for the Jews to exit from Egypt, to exit from slavery and to take their lives into their hands and to flee into the wilderness, they did not go alone. V'gam erev rav ala itam, and indeed a great multitude, a mixed multitude, arose and went with them. All those who were struggling for liberation, all those who wanted to escape Egypt, who wanted to escape what is in Hebrew translated as the narrow place, Mitzrayim, all of those went with them. And so we learn that at the very moment of the formation of our nation, at the very moment that we take up our destiny, there is no such thing as a genetic or biological nation. We go out as those who are oppressed. We are a mixed multitude, a great multitude of people who are escaping from Egypt. The Haftarah is, as always in our tradition, the Haftarah picks up a theme of the Parsha and continues with it. The Haftarah is also heavy reading, Jeremiah chapter 46. It tells us of the many great struggles and indeed defeats that our people will face. Jeremiah prophesies the destruction of our cities. Jeremiah prophesies that the Jewish people will be chased out of the land. He gives reasons for why this will happen to the Jewish people, but he prophesies a great destruction upon the people of Israel. He foresees this and he tells it. But at the end of the parsha, there is a shift, and he asks the people of Israel to know that at the end of this process, something else becomes possible. At the end of a time of destruction, a new reality will arise. And he describes that very carefully. He says, V'shav Yaakov, v'shaket, v'she'anan, v'en machrid, which means, and Jacob will sit down and will experience quiet and peace, and he will rest, and none will make him afraid. And so he prophesies eventually, at the end of this period of great destruction, he prophesies a different vision altogether. And indeed, the prophets of Israel often present to us a vision of utopia. Isaiah tells us that we will come to a time of peace. Isaiah indeed tells us that we will turn weapons into implements of farming, that we will change our guns or our swords, we will change our swords into plowshares, that we will change our spears into pruning hooks. He too says that we will come to a time where we will sit under our vine and under our fig tree, and that none will make us afraid. What is the lesson of this for the time that we find ourselves in, and for the real pain and difficulty and despair that many of us feel. I think there are two lessons for us here and two very useful processes that we can take ourselves through. The first one is the importance of utopian thinking. I remember when I was a student at Wits in the mid-80s, our wonderful lecturer Jackie Koch introduced a text to us called The Necessity of Utopian Thinking. And in it, she reminded us that if one never thinks in a utopian way, then one limits the capacity for change. So if we never think of society in a utopian way, if we never think about utopia, we cannot have a vision sufficiently for the future. We want to just make incremental changes. And I've been thinking and reading a little bit this week about that idea of utopian thinking, which is indeed a very Jewish idea. It is an idea that comes directly from the prophets, that it is time for us to imagine a reality quite different. And when people say to us it's naive or it's utopian, we should not apologize for utopian thinking. We should think rather about ways in which we can shift our perspective. And that, I think, is the second lesson of the parasha. Because Pharaoh hardened his heart. Pharaoh, despite the processes that Moses enters into with him, despite the process that God tries to take him through, you remember from last week's parasha and the week before, how Moses starts slowly. Moses just approaches Pharaoh and says, "Let my people go." And he says no. And then Moses throws the stick and it turns into a snake. And that's the beginning of showing divine intent. And he says no. And Moses keeps coming back. And in this parasha ball, he says, terrible things are going to befall Egypt if you don't let the people go. And Pharaoh's own advisors say to him, you should listen. There's a great power coming. But Pharaoh cannot shift his perspective. And because of that, a great destruction takes place. So I've been thinking about those things, a shift of perspective and utopian thinking in relation to what's happening in Israel and in Gaza. I've been thinking about what Gaza might look like under a utopian scenario. I've been thinking about what would happen if Jews and Arabs alike shifted their perspective. I've been thinking about the fact that I learned this week that the tunnels under Gaza are greater in their extent, not in their width, but in their length, than the underground system of London. I've been thinking about how much money and effort must have gone into creating those tunnels. And I've been thinking about what it would be like if such money and effort went into the development of Gaza and not into tunnels. I've been thinking about the pain that the Gazan people are experiencing, the Palestinian people in Gaza, and I've been thinking about the pain that Israeli people are experiencing. I've been thinking about the tremendous waste of life that this war entails on both sides. The young people, the flower of the youth in the Israeli army. The many children killed in the bombings in Gaza. I've been thinking about what if that effort and money went into developing a joint economy rather than into trying to destroy each other. I've been thinking about the fact that Gaza is on the Mediterranean. You know, one doesn't often think about that. Gaza is on the Mediterranean. It has this beautiful seafront frontage. Imagine if Gaza could prosper. Imagine if there were seafront cafes residential buildings, promenades. Imagine what could be done. Imagine the economy that could be built between Israel and Gaza if they were at peace. It may sound like utopian thinking. It may require a complete shift in perspective. But imagine what it would be like if we cooperated with each other, if we were not at war with one another. Is there a way for us to shift our perspective? Is there a way for us to build a society that even if it isn't a single state, if it is two states, but that nonetheless is joint, is cooperative? Imagine what could happen in Israel and Gaza and indeed the West Bank if we could make peace with one another. We are at a time of immense pain on both sides, immense destruction. It is a difficult time to think about a shifting of perspective. We are licking our wounds. It is difficult to think of anything but our own hurt. Many of us are also thinking about the hurt on the other side. And of course in Israel, the way is being shown by joint Israeli and Palestinian groups, joint Jewish and Muslim groups, who are getting together to just talk to each other, to share their pain with each other. And we have seen the tremendous example of the families of the bereaved over many years, families who have lost children in the conflict and who come together to share their pain and to talk about it. And so I have spent the week trying to imagine what life could be like if we could shift our perspective. If all of our hearts could get to a point of being softer with each other. I was lucky to be in Israel last year, and I spent some time with my sister Louise in what is one of my favorite places in Israel, in a city called Akko. Akko. Akko is a beautiful city. It is a biblical city. It is a Roman city. It's a walled city. It's a city on the sea. There are these beautiful ancient walls, retaining walls which to mark the end of the city and which overlook the sea. And you can sit in the seaside cafes looking at people diving, young men we watched diving off the wall, climbing up the steps of the wall and diving off the wall into the sea, and doing these incredibly acrobatic flips as they dived off the wall into the sea. And we sat, my sister and I, at a seaside cafe, which was a Palestinian-owned and run restaurant, serving what you might call Middle Eastern food. Is it Israeli? Is it Palestinian? Well, it's hummus. No one can know what it is. Eating that beautiful Middle Eastern food with several baskets of pita and watching these boys jumping off the wall into the sea. And one of the things that is interesting about Akko, and one of the reasons I like it so much, is it's one of those cities in Israel, of which there are a number, that is more or less half Jewish and Muslim, and also Christian in that city. But it's about half Palestinian and Israeli. And when you go into the restaurants and when you walk along the beachfront and when you walk through the ancient streets of Akko, you feel that you are in a mixed city. It is not paradise. It's a city that's had its fair share of problems. After one of the recent wars, after one of the recent Israeli incursions into Gaza, there was a tremendous amount of conflict and anger, and a hotel that had been built up by over many years by a very progressive Israeli man in partnership with some Palestinians was burnt down in anger. I don't say that Akko is immune or that it is a paradise, but what I did feel there was the possibility of living together. It's very different in feel from a place like Jerusalem, which has the East Jerusalem, West Jerusalem divide. So I want to ask us today just to think in a utopian way about Israel and Palestine. Just to say to ourselves that the prophets did prophesy great destruction, but also said that there could be an end to that. That at the end, Yaakov, Vashav Yaakov, Vishaket, and Jacob will sit down and will be quiet. V'she'anen, and will rest. V'en machrid, and no one will make him afraid. Can we beat our swords into plowshares? Can we turn our spears into pruning hooks? Some may say it is not the moment to speak of that. But if we do not think in a utopian way, we can never do anything other than just make incremental changes. The changes that we need, I think, are profound. And I guess they start in our minds. Let's pray for a change of perspective. Imagine if Gaza was not ruled by Hamas, which seeks to destroy Israel, but was ruled by others who were willing to take a different stance. Imagine if Israel was ruled by people who were much less extremist than Netanyahu and who were willing to see a joint future. Imagine if we could find a way to create a beautiful sea frontage in Gaza, where we can taste each other's food, listen to each other's songs, watch each other's children as they swim in the sea. It may sound utopian, and indeed it is, but perhaps it is time for a little bit of utopian thinking. I do believe that that is what this week's Parsha is leading us towards. As we enter into this week, let us also think about ways that we can contribute, about the calendar year that lies ahead of us. Many of us have had a holiday, and hopefully it has been a good time and a time of rest. And let us take energy now into this calendar year and think about ways in which we can contribute to our society, which we also face a big year here in South Africa. We have an election, we have many problems to solve. Ways in which we might contribute in Israel, and ways in which we might just shift our perspective. Who knows, with a shift of perspective, what may yet be possible in this world. Certainly, a shift of perspective is better than a process of despair. And so I wish everybody a Shabbat Shalom. May Shabbat bring peace to each one of us. May Shabbat bring gentleness to each one of us. May Shabbat bring an opportunity to magnify the soul that is within each one of us. And may Shabbat bring us the opportunity to perhaps change our perspective. In doing so, let us now conclude our service. As we conclude all services in the Jewish tradition, we conclude by creating space in our hearts for those that we have lost. And we do so also tonight through the Kaddish prayer. And I am going to ask Diane to please read out the names of those for whom we are particularly saying Kaddish tonight. I will also invite anyone who is in mourning, anyone who is commemorating a Yotzat, anyone who has recently been bereaved. You may join me on the bima if you wish. And aside from that, we will, each of us, bring to consciousness and bring into our hearts those who we have lost. Thank you, Diane. I have a list here as well. Yeah. Thanks to Russell.
Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbours have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. Zikronam livracha, may their memories be for blessing. And tonight we remember the yahrzeit of Lizzie Bentheim, mother of Harriet Gundel, Jaime Dorfman, uncle of Michelle Fryer, Eileen Gallagher, friend of Andre Buerta and Gerard Kutzier, Miriam Goldman, mother of Aubrey Goldman, Herbert Hodes, father-in-law of Judy Hodes, Lily Honickman, mother of Marcia Levison, Eve Mankiewicz-Plesner, remembered by Beit Emanuel, Brian Marcus, husband of Lola Marcus, John Marks, husband of Anne Marks, Nichia Rosenberg, mother of Michael Rosenberg, Myrna Stampler, sister of Barbara Ludman. May their memory be for a blessing.
Thank you so much, Diane. I'd invite you to rise, please, as we recite together. Yitgadal v'yitkadosh shmei Rabbah, ve'alma divrach yiruteh ve'yamlich malchuteh, v'chayechon u'vyomechon u'v'chayed achol Beit Yisrael, v'gadlah v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah v'vorach le'olam u'lolei omaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitradar v'yit'aleh v'yitradar, shmei d'kudshah b'richu. לעילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים, עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומה, הוא יעשה שלום, עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו שלום.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I just have one comment which I would like to make, or one announcement. We have arranged with Rabbi Andy Cutie, who is now no longer student rabbi, but she is now a fully graduated, qualified rabbi, which is great. And she will be joining us for 10 days in February and 10 days in March to help out with services, religion school, ITJ, and I suppose anything we ask of her, life cycle events, and just as an amazing person to talk to if you want to take up the opportunity. Accommodation is the one thing I want to just talk about briefly. We do have the offer of a flat in Victory Park, Mickey and Andrew Jacobs' flat, but Andy says she doesn't have friends in Joburg. She doesn't want to be alone in Joburg. Is there anybody who has a cottage in their garden or would like to have her in their home or could make her feel welcome? I am going to be asking that when she's here we all make an effort to take her out and to see that she's not lonely. But if anyone can offer suitable accommodation, please let me know or let Russell know. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to conclude our service with Adon Olam.
Adon Olam, Hashem Allah, B'terem kol yetzirah, li'et nasa v'chetzu kol, azay melech shemo nikra, v'yafarek niklot hakol. Levado yimloch nora, ve'hu hayah
And before we wish each other a Shabbat Shalom, I'm going to offer a blessing, but I particularly want to ask young people, children, maybe children and their moms, and anybody else who wants a Kit Kat, to come up onto the bimah. To come up onto the bimah. I want to bless the children as I'll bless us all. There's a serious incentive here, everybody. And I nearly forgot about the Kit Kat. I need to move it. Okay, I wish I had a good one. Why don't you on both sides of the table? You turn this one as well. Please rise, everybody. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichunecha. Yishma Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May God bless you and keep you. May God cause His light to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May God turn His presence towards you and give you peace. Amen. Amen. Shabbat shalom. Here we go. Shabbat shalom, everybody. We'll see you in the hall for supper. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Thank you so much to the musicians. It was absolutely lovely. I really enjoyed it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Ah, thank you.
Might not be 100%, might be 90%.
Welcome back. It's so nice to see you. It's been such a long time.
Do you think we'll be in here again next week?
I think so.
I was wondering if I should leave my file here rather than schlepping it back and then schlepping it here again.
Yeah, because attendance hasn't quite picked
Not
up
there yet,
yet.
yeah.